Welcome to the Cowboy podcast, where talk is all about the West. This episode is brought to you by White Stallion Ranch and produced by Cowboy Spirit USA. This week was World Animal Day, and here at the podcast, we do love our animals. Dogs, cats, horses, bobcats, javelinas, even a hawk, and a big old longhorn steer. Here are Russell and Alan talking about some of their favorite pets and animals. We loved this episode so much when it ran in April 2021 that we decided to run it again. So settle back for a Cowboy Minute and give a listen.
So, Ellen, you were kind of telling me a story offline the other day about, and I couldn't believe I'd never heard about it, about your pet hawk.
I don't know why, but yeah, it was, I've had a lot of pets in my life. When you're out on the ranch, you see injured or baby, animals. We had pet deer, pet wildcat, pet javelinas, and this particular one was a pet hawk. But it wasn't the red tail that you see the most of. It was a little sparrow hawk, a lot smaller. And was out cowboying one day, and here was this baby hawk fluttering around. And so I put him in my glove and then put the glove in my shack pocket and went on home. And so we raised him right in the house, and quickly discovered that what he liked was hamburger. And he would beg for hamburger. And we'd, feed him a little hamburger. And we named him Sylvester. And he had more personality. He was like Russell's daughter. He just was full of everything and not afraid of anything and just had a giant personality. And he was so much fun to be around. But for example, when he was growing up, he wanted to learn how to fly. And we had him in the house. We didn't keep him outside. We raised him in the house. And he liked to ride around on your arm, but especially on your shoulder, So he'd get up on my shoulder, and we'd go all around the ranch and go down to the corrals and what all. He didn't like the corrals much because the horses were so big that frightened him, and he'd kind of cower down, on my shoulder. And the only thing bad was he wasn't toilet trained, so when you had him very long, the back of your shirt was all white, because he just would go when he wanted to go. That was a small price to pay for the personality and the love that bird had. And like when he got old enough to fly, well, he'd talk to me. And I don't know crow language, don't know hawk language, but I know the tone. And when he was happy, he'd have this happy little chirp, and then when he was unhappy, it would be, and I knew exactly what had happened when he'd had an adventure. Well, he'd come and tell me about it. But learning to fly, had a living room almost as big as this room, not maybe half the size of this room. It's pretty big. So he'd take off, and he'd crash into the couch or one of the chairs or what all, and he'd be angry, and I'd go pick him up, or maybe he'd jump up and he'd try it again. Learned to fly in our living room and got awfully good at it. And so then I took him out. We never tried to keep him around, never put him on a leash or anything, took him out, and I'd say, fly, and he'd go off. But I could always call him, and I'd say, Sylvester, come. And wherever he was, he'd hear me, and he'd come streaking in, dive bombing in, and land right on my shoulder. And tell me where he'd been. He'd talk to me. And talk about a fabulous pet. We just loved Sylvester. He was just part of the family from day one. And what he always liked was hamburger. If you had a little hamburger, he'd come anyway when you'd call him. But when he landed, he always wanted a little reward for, being a good boy. But finally started leaving for a day at a time, and then coming back, and then 2 days, and then finally one time he didn't come back. And we all hoped that it was to a happy end, because that bird had so much love and so much personality. He was just wonderful to be around.
Well, it's a perfect story for, what is it, National Pet Month or something? And
Yeah, this month is
Right.
National Pet Month.
And so I have a very different story, of course. I grew up in a family that loved terrier dogs, and so I grew up around terriers from my youth, and one of those terriers was an Airedale, and we had puppies, and I was a little boy. I was probably about 7 or 8, and so I got to pick one of those Airedale puppies. And of course, if you don't know Airedales, they're the biggest of the terriers, and they're not known for cooperation or ease of handling, and so you gotta kind of be up for it. And I've had Airedales ever since, so I guess I'm up for it. So my very first Airedale, who I named Copper, and was just inseparable. They're also known for being one-man dogs, and so she was 90 pounds, so she was a huge Airedale, and I was a little kid, and so one day she was out, and it was, I believe it was summertime, and we had big grass lawn out by the pool, same pool, but different setup now. And not that she was eager to come when I called, but when I called her, instead of turning and walking the other way, which would have been more typical, she just stood there frozen. And I have no idea why, but I knew in an instant that she had gotten hold of a Colorado river toad. And if you're not from here, Colorado river toads are poisonous. And among many things that they can do that will kill a dog is they can make them essentially paralyzed, and they escalate their body temperature and make their heart race, and so dogs don't always live. But the remedy, so to speak, is you get them to a hose and you hose their mouth out, because the poison glands are on the back of these big ugly slate gray toads. And so to this day, I mean, you talk about when somehow you were told what was going on, and because I really didn't. So I grabbed her, and she outweighed me, so I drug her to the back end of the pool because she couldn't move, and hosed out her mouth as best I could. Just absolutely, my best friend in all the world, Copper the Airedale. And so I hosed her out, and I drug her home, and her respiration, her heart rate were up, but she was doing okay, and she was able now to move. And so at my urging, my parents took her to the vet, and the vet said, yeah, no, she's going to be okay. But that was to a 12-year-old, that was a pretty traumatic deal. And my son lost a dog a few years ago to a Colorado river toad, and so we went on a Colorado river toad eradication program, and we kind of felt badly about it until we found out that the University of Arizona and other groups are actually sending graduate students out in desert areas like this to eradicate them, because they had displaced this native toad that was now endangered. And so we thinned the herd of the Colorado river toads, and those other toads that are indigenous and endangered came back.
I'll be done.
And so it's kind of a accidental good thing that we did. So we're kind of happy about that. So I don't know. You're up.
Well, dog story. My family, we had dogs around the ranch always, and my mother would never let a dog in the house except Susie. And we had a little white kind of poodle mongrel dog. She was about this big and white, and her legs about that long, but kind of fat, kind of round. But Susie had just a wonderful personality, and she was very polite always and wanted to do what you wanted to do. But every day when you'd walk in the morning, Susie'd be in the house, and she'd smile at you, and she'd smile at each person, kind of go like that, and that was a daily ritual. But smart as she could be, the other thing that she did that, well, you couldn't understand, but it was just part of Susie, she could hear an automobile coming in the ranch road way before we could hear. And she knew if it was one of the ranch vehicles or if it was a strange one. And she'd bark, and you could tell the difference in her bark. You know, somebody strange is coming, or that's the pickup coming in to the ranch, and never failed. She was always correct. And she wouldn't bark a lot, but she'd bark about twice, and then you'd know somebody was coming, and you'd know whether it was a stranger or one of the cowboys. And then the other thing, she liked to go hunting with me. I'd go out to put out salt, or sometimes in a dry time like now, we'd mix cottonseed cake and salt, and we'd put that out and mix it in a trough for the cattle, and it was protein for the cows. And so Susie would like to go along with me, and I'd always carry a .22 rifle, and we had a lot of jackrabbits. And jackrabbits you hear different amounts. I've heard as many as 10 jackrabbits will eat as much as a cow. I don't know, pick your number. But they're pretty big, and they eat quite a little. So we shot jackrabbits, and Susie loved that, and she'd be up watching. And a lot of times she'd spot them before I'd see them. But when you stop and shoot one, she'd jump out, and a lot of times I was in the Jeep. She and I went in the Jeep a lot. And she would jump out of the Jeep, and the Jeep was about this high, and her legs were about that long, so she'd crash into the ground and roll and you know, just thump. And she'd run up to the jackrabbit, wherever it was, and shake it. Well, this rabbit would shake her because the rabbit was bigger than her, but she'd shake. And what was so cool is if the rabbit had some blood and she got the blood on her, she'd come back and she'd show me, you know. Show me this blood. She was so proud. The hunter killer dog had a spot of blood on her. And she would be so proud of that. She'd go around the ranch for a day or two till the blood kind of disappeared. And that was her badge of being a, you know, wonderful hunter. And so, you know, when you have a dog with that much personality, how can you not just love them to pieces? So that was... And we had outdoors dogs too, but Susie was the only one that could go in the house. So anyway, and you wish they lived as long as we do, because it's really hard to lose a dog. So, all right, your turn.
Well, we can have the opposite, you know, because we're in the business we are, you know, our obnoxious little terriers, my parents' obnoxious terriers, had to stay inside. So they had one Airedale that they had saved from euthanasia because these people were going to move, and this Airedale was a bit old, and, you know, so they said somehow they came, if you don't take it, which was, you know, of course, we're going to take it. So my parents, in fact, it was the father of my Airedale that I saved from the toad. So his name was Rogue, and he had free reign of the ranch, and later in life, he'd had a stroke, and his head kind of tilted, and he had a little trickle of blood would run out of his eye. But he was still an Airedale, and he was a big, big Airedale, and he would wander around. And at the time, we had one neighbor, and we didn't like each other. And their German Shepherd, young male dogs would come over here and tip our garbage and kill our chickens and do this and that. And my father couldn't get the neighbor to keep their miserable, damage-creating German Shepherds off our ranch. So he solved that by electrifying a garbage can and wetting the surrounding area on this metal garbage can. And he was so pleased because, A, they survived, which was, you know, he didn't want to kill them. But he wanted them to remember it. And he said, look how deep their paw prints are. So anyway, needless to say, we weren't friends anymore after that either, although the dogs couldn't tell the story. But they did stop coming. But we get a call from our angry neighbors one night, and it was late, and they said, hey, your old Airedale was over here and got in a fight with our two German Shepherds, and we're having to take our German Shepherds to the emergency vet because they're pretty damaged. And we imagine your ugly old Airedale's dead in the desert somewhere, but we're just calling to tell you what happened. So my parents looked around, couldn't find the Airedale, went out and couldn't find the Airedale. Finally, he walks in, covered in blood. I mean, just red. So they put him in the bath and they wash him off, and he had 1/2 inch cut. So that was German Shepherd blood. It was not Airedale blood. So my parents were very proud of Rogue. So anyway.
So we had a fun pet that we had, again, was down at Old Camp, cowboying one day, and ran across these 2 little javelina hogs.
Oh, wow.
You know, do you guys know javelina hogs? I'm not even sure they're of the hog variety.
They say they're not. They say they're peccaries.
Yeah, but they have 2 little pointed hooves. You know, it kind of looked like a deer track on their hooves.
We saw 10 of them today.
There's a bunch of them around.
Yeah.
They're what?
He saw 10 here today.
10, yeah. They're around. They're all over. Well, anyway, I picked up these 2 pups. What do you call a baby javelina? I don't know. A cub, a pup,
Piglet, but
Piglet.
They say they're not pigs, but I'm going with piglet.
Okay, I'll buy that. But anyway, we tried them, brought them home, and tried them on it. We had a baby bottle, and we tried them on a baby bottle to nurse them, and they wouldn't take the baby bottle. What we discovered is you take milk and put it in a cup, and they drink out of a cup just like you would. And so we raised them on milk out of a cup, and they'd put it in their mouth they'd put their mouth right on the, you know, on top and bottom of the rim of the cup and just drink that milk like crazy. Anyway, so we raised them up, and they were just the sweetest, nicest pets you ever saw.
Really?
And they'd follow you around the ranch wherever you wanted to go. And what was kind of odd, and if I'd sit down on the porch, they were out and they wanted attention, so I'd a lot of times sit on the porch, and they'd just end up jumping right up in your lap.
Wow.
You know, and petting a javelina hog is like petting a wire brush, okay? It's just not very smooth, okay? Their bristles are really bristly, and they will kind of lay down, but still, it's not like petting anything you ever petted, you know? But they were, and so the one funny thing, you couldn't tell them apart. They were brother and sister, but you couldn't tell them apart. But people would ask me, they'd say, well, what'd you name them? And I said, Ann and Sandra. That's my 2 sisters. They'd say, which is which? I said, the mean one is Ann. Well, I didn't know which one was which. We just always said they're Ann and Sandra. But anyway, the other strange thing about them is wherever I was in the house, we had a big kind of single level house, you know, that kind of wandered around here and there. And wherever I was in the house, they'd be outside that part of the house. And how they knew, I don't know, because I don't walk particularly quietly, but, you know, it was concrete floors, but some rugs and what all. If I went to the kitchen, they'd be outside the kitchen. If I was back in the bedroom, they'd be outside the bedroom there. And they always knew. I never could figure it out. But anyway, same thing with them. They started leaving a little bit and then a little more, and then they finally went away. But we had them for a couple of years, and they were great pets, you know. And I just, you know, pets are pets.
Wow.
Yeah, Ann and Sandra. Well, you wouldn't think. I never saw anybody that had a pet javelina before. Never heard of one. But maybe nobody tried.
I think you're the only one.
You know, it's funny. When I did the research for the historic Arizona dude ranches, because a lot of those guys are ranchers and they were living, you know, particularly in those early days, very similar, isolated rural lives. And, you know, a lot of them had, or I saw pictures of them petting their little pet deer and no javelinas. But of course, nowadays you're not allowed to do any of that stuff. But
nobody came around to tell us.
No, they didn't. They'd have thanked you. Now I don't know. Well, it's not really a pet, but we call him our pet Longhorn, and so his name was Sancho, and we've been raising Longhorns here for a long time, and our first head wrangler was a guy named Harold Frizzell, and his wife particularly was just intrigued with these Texas Longhorns that really grow long horns. I mean, they've been selectively bred for that. And, their Spanish origins wouldn't have been that long. But anyway, they're known for these big fancy racks that they carry. And so, for whatever reason, Cindy Frizzell, Harold's wife, who really did most of the work back then, she decided that she was going to keep one of the calves and train it. And so his name was Sancho, and they made him a steer, which means, he's not going to be a bull anymore, and which is probably important if you're going to have him as a pet. And not absolutely, but it's helpful. So my introduction to him was Harold and his friend were down at the corrals, and I was down there, and which worked out not to be a great idea that day. And so they had Sancho, and he was little back then. He was probably weighing about 400 pounds. His horns were about 4, 5, 6 inches long on each side. And so they decided to put me on him. And he escaped their control with this little, and I was not a big kid, and he was running with me on his back toward the back corral where we had the horses saddled and tied up. So he would have run in there with me on his back with a bunch of tied horses, which would have, of course, freaked out. And one of them got around and just scooped me off at the very last second. And so everything ended well. But, that was my start with Sancho. And then after Harold left, and then Clyde Davis, our great mentor and head wrangler, and so Sancho had been taught to bow, and people could come in and get pictures with him. He'd step on a pedestal, and now his horns were wider than my arms are, and so they nobody's around. I'm the only one there, and they want to do a little feature on him, local TV, and Sancho, your javelinas knew where you were. And animals smell fear, and they so intuitive. So I'm the only one around, so I got to go in and get Sancho out of his pen, put a rope around him. That's all the way and get him out. And he could smell fear, and I was scared. And so I had to go in and get him. So I figure I gotta be really tough. And so if he swings his horns at me, I gotta bang him back because they don't like that much. And so I did that, and I got the rope around him and got him out, and we did the little dog and pony show for the TV show, and Sancho and we were good after that. So from then on, we could do the tricks. I could get him to do stuff instead of smacking me with his big, heavy horns. And so he wasn't really a pet, but he was a pet because he had no other job. So I guess he was his job was to look like a longhorn steer with big horns.
So, again, you have different pets. Came across baby wildcat one time. Bobcat, not a mountain lion, but a wildcat, the short-tailed one, and two of them. That was when I was pretty young. I was trying to be a Boy Scout that never, the mating never worked very well for me and Boy Scouts, but anyway, I tried it for a while. And Raymond Probert and I were on a Boy Scout camping trip, and we got these two pet bobcats, and he took one and I took one. And so brought Bobby home. And what would you have name him other than Bobby?
Gotta be Bobby.
Brought Bobby home and raised him, and he loved to be petted. And so if you could get him calm enough to pet him, then he'd purr. And if he went to purring, you could hear him to the back of the room. He had a real motor, for the purring part. But sometimes he didn't want to be petted or didn't want to be handled. And so I've still got some scars right there where he went all the way through that part of my hand. I frightened him one time. I was holding him, and something frightened him, and he turned around and bit me and turned me loose before I could even react. There was a hole in my hand. But anyway, he wasn't my very favorite pet. But I held him a lot. But Raymond Probert, they even made this brother to the one I had, turned out to be the biggest baby you ever saw, and he just lay on you, and he would wait and hide behind a door and jump at you, but not trying to hurt you, just to kind of frighten you, but he'd land on your shoulder and then purr. And they taught that cat to use the toilet. He never would flush it, but he would go and use the toilet and sit on the toilet. And did for years in their house. They really did. Now, go top that story if you can. But I used to go see, and the fur on their cat, they fed him a lot of liver and what all. He got the thickest, softest, glossiest fur that you ever saw. You know, when you'd pet it, you'd think, wow, that's magic. It's so soft. And my Bobbies had hair like a bobcat's supposed to have, but theirs had this hair that reflected a whole lot of liver. But anyway, they made pretty good pets.
Well, I just can't top that. First of all, I didn't know bobcats purred.
Oh, yeah. And you never were close enough to one.
No, I never was. I mean, we have them around here quite a bit, but we're usually trying to run them off because they're trying to eat our chickens or something. So I think unless you got, I can't top that. I'm tapped on the bobcat that uses the toilet. So, will anybody want to come up and ask us a question? And it doesn't have to be about pets. I mean, Alan, I always love to say is the one man on earth who got on a horse and literally, without exaggeration, making the story any bigger than it was. I mean, it's just giant in itself, and rode out in front of 1,500 Mustangs that were free behind him, and led them to pasture, and did it more than once. But
many times.
Yeah, many times. But the first time was, boy, I hope this works.
First time was scary.
Yeah. And so you can ask him about anything, and or myself. So if you want to come up, the mic is open, Stan?
Sure.
All right.
And by the way, we had wanted to do this with audience participation. We've been talking about it, and so we're tickled that you guys are here.
Or you yell us a question and we'll repeat it if you like. Any questions? No?
Well, you must have some, Russell, good stories about horses. Like, horses all have their own personality. Do you have any favorite horses that you ever had, or most ornery horse? Something like that?
I have all of those. We do have a lot of horse stories, and I'll do one, and then I'm sure Alan, he has better horse stories than me. But, the horse I have now is a horse called Rillito, and Rillito, and it's named after our local racetrack, which I'm involved in, horse racetrack. And so I had him. He came to me as a burned out roping horse, which means he'd been spoiled and ruined, and so in about 4 weeks I had him fixed, and which is a testament to him. But on Wednesday, you've been to the rodeo anyway, and so I stand one place, and then on horseback, and then I move about 30 feet and stand another place. So Rito had been very patient first 2 or 3 weeks, and he'd stand right where he was supposed to stand. He was kind of happy not to be doing anything. And so we were standing there, and we'd talk, and then all of a sudden he would decide to move. And I would be annoyed. I'd rein him in, and I'd think, why are you doing that? Well, it took me 3 weeks to figure out, keep in mind that horses are prey animals through evolution, so their eyes are on the side of their head. So they have this terrific peripheral vision that humans, being predator-type animals, don't have. We have the intense forward look. So his peripheral vision would tell him that somebody was walking on foot toward the barrels for the barrel race, and that he had picked up in 3 weeks to be a clue that we were going to go move 30 feet and turn around. So once I allowed him to do what he wanted to do in the first place, is he would walk the 30 feet, do a 180-degree turn and stop. And so javelinas know where you are in the house. Bobcats play games. And horses outthink you.
They do.
So that's my current story, and I'm just always amazed at what horses do.
We need to be aware enough of what the horse is telling us, and I don't think any of us are 100% on that, but horses can give feedback to you that it's good if you can pick up on that, because a lot of horses, not all. I used to have one that I called Idiot, and I think she knew what I wanted, but I think she didn't want to do it, because I wanted to. She wanted to do the opposite. And but horses will, in their way, they will speak to you, and they do know more than we think they know. So they're fun to have. Yeah, Idiot was. We had two names for her. We called her Idiot, but some of us called her Ignorance. So it was kind of interchangeable. And she was just spooky. She was wired tight and just ready at a moment's notice to jump from here to there. And I mean, you could be riding along on her, take your hat off and set it on the saddle horn, and she'd run from here to the other end of the room, or sideways or what all. And so I didn't know whether to keep her or not, because actually she was really good up in the rocks. We had a lot of big old rocky mountains at the ranch, and a horse that can pick his way through the rocks is a good thing. And she was good in the rocks. She just would kind of float over the rocks somehow. I don't know. But she was goofy. And so I was afraid she was going to hurt one of the cowboys, so I decided I better ride her. Well, that's goofy thinking, okay? Because if the boss gets hurt, there's nobody to run the place. So, but I took her and just decided, well, I was going to sit up. If you sat up on her and acted like a cowboy and didn't make a strange motion and didn't get sideways in the saddle or anything, she just would do whatever you wanted. But when you would do something that was a little different, she'd try to get out from under you. And once in a while it would happen. But one time we were ranches, when you're rounding up a lot of them, there'll be a pasture or an area where the cattle are, and you'll want to gather them at this spot. But the crew all rides out together to the back of the pasture, and then you spread out and drive the cattle back to the where you're gathering them, so you ride out together and then come back. So this morning, the whole way we're riding, she's going sideways and jumping and halfway down the trail sideways, and then swap ends and the other sideways and jumping and just goofy. And I couldn't figure out what was going on, and mostly I was just trying to stay centered on her, so I'd be ready for whatever way she jumped, because I didn't know what was coming next. Finally get down about 4.5 miles out from where we're coming back to, turned around to come back. And it turned out that day, and I didn't know this was a factor, but there was a big east wind blowing that day, and we were going west. So the wind was at our back. When I finally got off to try to figure it out, she had walked by one of these big ocotillo cactuses, the tall, prickly ones, and she picked up a piece of that ocotillo in her tail.
Eesh.
And it was hung in her tail, and the wind was blowing it right up between her hind legs. So every time it would hit her hind legs, well, she'd have a spasm. And so when I finally saw what it was, got out my pocket knife, and about that much of her tail came off, and all of the ocotillo, and then we had a happy day from there on. But sometimes it will surprise you what, if you're more aware, I wouldn't have had to spend that hour and a half, trying to figure out what was going on. I'd have gotten off a little sooner and found that.
Wow, that's brutal. Those ocotillo.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't want it up between my hind legs.
Oh. Well, I don't know even why it makes me think of it, but one of our great dude horses once, and I say great because of the story I'm about to tell, spring and fall rattlesnakes are out. And so our wranglers are instructed, if there's a snake in the trail and you're going fast, meaning we're at a canter or lope, and you can get that ride stopped before you get to that snake, keep going. Because now the rattlesnake's in jeopardy, not us. So a wrangler forgot that critical piece of information, and she stopped a ride on top of a rattlesnake. And comes home, tells the story, said, well, you know, I made this error, but everybody's good. You know, no horses jumped, everything's good. So 2 hours later, I get a call, and this horse name was Flint, and they said, we think Flint's broken his leg. It's swollen up, you know, like an elephant's leg. And I go down there, and sure enough, I mean, from his shoulder to the hairline, it was swollen like I'd never seen a horse's leg swell. So I think, yeah, he probably broke his leg. I don't know. This just looks really bad. So we started looking around. We found 6 sets of fang marks on this horse's leg. And he had gotten bit 6 times.
Not during the ride.
During the ride. And didn't move. And I went back and asked the guest, I said, your horse got bit 6 times while you were sitting on him while that dumb wrangler stopped. But I didn't say that part. and she goes, oh, didn't even flinch. 6 sets of fang marks, and the horse came out fine. And so, yes.
Do the horses ever run into the cactuses?
So the question is, do the horses run into the cactus? Yes, not very often. More often than not, our wranglers again are supposed to look for those little cholla segments on the trail because they blow off. It's one of the evolutionary strategies to spread themselves. So they'll sometimes step on them and kick it up. And if they've been here a while, you know, if they're from Colorado, it'll take them a while, for example, to get used to cactus. Once they're used to it, they'll kind of walk on through it, unless they kick it up under their belly or kind of in the areas you wouldn't want them to have cholla. So yes, it happens, but they pretty well walk on through it. They'll kind of shake their leg or something.
Yeah, Russell, I was just remembering my son was out with, I can't remember, it was a half-day ride or something when we were here about 8-10 years ago, and your brother was with him, and they found a desert tortoise.
Right.
And that had a great story to it. Do you remember it? Could you tell it? They found a desert tortoise, and somehow, I don't know who was telling the story, either you or your brother, but the desert tortoise, they looked in the paper and there was a 1 in it. Somebody lost the desert tortoise. Yeah,
actually, so the question is, they found a desert tortoise, and but it actually wasn't. It's a desert tortoise that isn't native to us. It's an African desert tortoise, and so it was bigger than ours. So we knew it wasn't native, and so they saw it, lost it. We spent all this time, finally tracked it out, and he had crawled out of a pen from his owner, from the son-in-law of the owner of the tortoise. So mother-in-law was not happy. This tortoise had gone walking, and it showed up here 6 miles away from where he started.
That's a long way in turtle.
Yeah, that was.
He would have died, right? I remember somebody saying he would have died if he was out there much longer.
The expectation was yeah.
But you guys brought him.
Well, and through the wonders of Facebook, they put the word out, and they found the owner, and the owner came, and he was really relieved because he could give his mother-in-law back her tortoise. So, because he was tortoise sitting. And the tortoise escaped. So, yeah, he was in trouble. Took him, not that long, 3 or 4 days to go 6 miles. I just can't even, it was a big tortoise. But
we had a long walk ahead of him. Yeah. He's going to get back to his native range.
yeah, he did. Any other? Yes.
Russell, when you were on Sancho's back.
Yeah.
The longhorn steer.
Yes.
He was running.
Yes.
What did you hold on to? Like, I think I would have held on to his horns. I mean, what do you hold on to on a steer?
Well, I mean, I think I was gripping with my legs, and so the question is, what was I holding on to when Sancho was headed back to the saddling corral where I was going to meet my fate? They don't have a mane like a horse, but there's a bit of hair. I think honestly, it's pretty terrifying. I mean, I was a pretty little kid, and I was not Mr. Fearless, so I really thought it was going to go badly, and been smarter, I'd have exited. That would have been the smart strategy, but I didn't. Unfortunately, I was scooped off. Any other questions?
One more cute little story, if you don't mind.
No. We'll wrap with this.
Wrap it home. Okay.
Yeah.
Wrap it up.
This
Have
will
a
be
daughter,
perfect.
Sarah, that was just, I think, born on a horse. Are you Sarah? Well, my Sarah's a blonde, and when she was maybe 1 year older than you, when I married her mother, she was 5, but I adopted her as my child. And so the first thing I did the first week she was there at the ranch, I gave her a horse and a dog, because I thought any little girl that comes to a ranch should have a horse and a dog. So she did. And we crawled under somebody's trailer house into a bunch of puppies and let her select her puppy. And then the little mare that I gave her was a cow horse, but a smaller cow horse. And my cowboys didn't like her too much because they were afraid a long day would make her too tired. But she was just about the right size for Sarah. So anyway, Sarah just loved the dog and the horse, and was with them more than she was with us. I mean, I built her a nice stall and a pen, and if you wanted to find Sarah, she'd be out there and out at the pen. So anyway, and she was a pretty good cowgirl, but what she liked was jumping horses. She wanted to jump. And so she did the hunter thing, which is smaller jumps, but she wanted the big jumps. And so she would do these big jumps. So I then built her a complete set of jumps that would be the same jumps that she would use if she was in a show, which she did a lot of that later. But she had a full set of jumps. So she took this little mare and taught her to jump. And so she could go around that whole set of jumps with this not very big mare and just fly around there. So now the story, that's background. I was trying to sell a set of bulls to a guy. One time he came and wanted to buy a set of bulls. And I spent all day with him trying to show him the cows and the bulls, and he never did say, I'll buy the bulls. So I'm coming back home, and when I'm about a quarter of a mile from the headquarters, and I knew, because of his attitude, I knew that if I drove up to where his car was, he'd get out and say thank you and get in his car and leave, and I wouldn't make a sale. I could see this sale getting away from me, and I wanted to sell those bulls. So the road came past Sarah's jumps, where she was. And I'd been with him all day, so this was 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and she was home from school. Where was she? She was on her little mare out there at the jumps. And she did a lot of jumping bareback, because she was really good horseback, so she mostly didn't use a saddle. So he looked over, and he said, wow, that's a good-looking little horse. And so I stopped, and Sarah came galloping up, and I said, how you doing, Sarah? How's the horse? And she said, fine. I just reached out of the pickup and took the bridle off and said, now go take a round. So there's Sarah, no bridle, no saddle, on this little horse, and she wheeled around and did all 8 jumps and came galloping back up and stopped, and I handed her the bridle. And this guy said, well, I've seen a lot of things in my life, but I never saw anything like that. And he bought 6 bulls from there to where his car was. So I told Sarah I owed her a commission for that little thing, because I was out of good ideas. So I love that.
Well, that's a perfect ending. So.
Well, thank you guys.
Yeah. Thank you all for coming over.
It's kind of fun to have an audience and have some feedback, you know.
Well, thank you. Feel free to do anything you'd like.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a different feel to have somebody,
Yeah.
you know, there to kind of talk to.
Hello, everybody. This is Stephen True from the White Stallion Ranch, and thank you for listening to another Cowboy Up podcast. The cactus are starting to bloom, and that means we are getting ready for summer. This summer, a great way to bring your family is through our Cactus Kids program. It offers a significant discount for families. It includes the rides and activities, and even one free riding lesson per child. Come bring your family and enjoy riding, shooting, rock climbing, archery, in addition to the pool, game room, and petting zoo. Please give us a call at 520-297-0252 or visit us at whitestallion.com. Again, that's 520-297-0252 or whitestallion.com.
All right, friends, that's a wrap from the ranch. A shout out to Stan Houston and his production company. Got a pet story? Send it on over and we'll share it. Just go to our website, thecowboyuppodcast.com. That's thecowboyuppodcast.com. Join us next week when two special guests head over to the ranch to talk about conservation, ranching, and more. Until then, I'm Lynn Weezy Sneed, reminding you to sit tall and ride safe.